Hi, it's Quimby, and this week I'll be diving into NEUROMANCER by William Gibson. This is the book we are living in now. Imagine a world where the line between flesh and machine is gone, where secrets run faster than blood through the veins of insomniatic cities. NEUROMANCER isn't just a book, it's a pulse, a shadowy electric dream that pulled cyberpunk out of the void and shoved it into our reality. The Matrix, cyberspace, jacking in, rogue AIs, it all came from NEUROMANCER. Ready for a sample? Case was 24. At 22, he'd been a cowboy, a rustler, one of the best in the sprawl. He'd been trained by the best, by McCoy Pauly and Bobby Quine, legends in the biz. He'd operated on an almost permanent adrenaline high, a byproduct of youth and proficiency, jacked into a custom cyberspace deck that projected his disembodied consciousness into the consensual hallucination that was the Matrix. A thief, he worked for other wealthier thieves, employers who provided the exotic software required to penetrate the bright walls of corporate systems, opening windows into rich fields of data. He'd made the classic mistake, the one he'd sworn he'd never make. He stole from his employers. He kept something for himself and tried to move it through a fence in Amsterdam. He still wasn't sure how he'd been discovered, not that it mattered now. He expected to die, then, but they only smiled. Of course he was welcome, they told him. Welcome to the money, and he was going to need it. Because, still smiling, they were going to make sure he never worked again. They damaged his nervous system with a wartime Russian mycotoxin. Strapped to a bed in a Memphis hotel, his talent burning out micron by micron, he hallucinated for 30 hours. The damage was minute, subtle, and utterly effective. For Case, who'd lived for the bodiless exaltation of cyberspace, it was the fall. In the bars he frequented as a cowboy hotshot, the elite stance involved a certain relaxed contempt for the flesh. The body was meat. Case fell into the prison of his own flesh. His total assets were quickly converted to new yen, a fat sheaf of the old paper currency that circulated endlessly through the closed circuit of the world's black markets, like the seashells of the Torbriand Islanders. It was difficult to transact legitimate business with cash in the sprawl. In Japan, it was already illegal. In Japan, he'd known, with a clenched and absolute certainty, he'd find his cure in Chiba, either in a registered clinic or in the shadowland of black medicine. Synonymous with implants, nerve splicing, and microbionics, Chiba was a magnet for the sprawl's techno-criminal subcultures. In Chiba, he watched his new yen vanish in a 2-month round of examinations and consultations. The men in the black clinics, his last hope, had admired the expertise with which he'd been maimed and then slowly shaken their heads. Now he slept in the cheapest coffins, the ones nearest the port, beneath the quartz halogen floods that lit the docks all night like vast stages, where you couldn't see the lights of Tokyo for the glare of the television sky, not even the towering hologram logo of the Fuji Electric Company, and Tokyo Bay was a black expanse where gulls wheeled above drifting shoals of white styrofoam. Behind the port lay the city, factory domes dominated by the vast cubes of corporate arcologies. Port and city were divided by a narrow borderland of older streets, an area with no official name, Night City, with Ninsei its heart. By day, the bars down Ninsei were shuttered and featureless, the neon dead, the holograms inert, waiting under the poisoned silver sky. 2 blocks west of the Chat, in a tea shop called the Jar de Thé, Case washed down the night's first pill with a double espresso. It was a flat pink octagon, a potent species of Brazilian Dex he bought from one of Zone's girls. The jar was walled with mirrors, each panel framed in red neon. At first, finding himself alone in Chiba, with little money and less hope of finding a cure, he'd gone into a kind of terminal overdrive, hustling fresh capital with a cold intensity that seemed to belong to someone else. In the first month, he killed 2 men and a woman over sums that a year before would have seemed ludicrous. Ninsei wore him down until the street itself came to seem the externalization of some death wish, some secret poison he hadn't known he carried. Night City was like a deranged experiment in social Darwinism, designed by a bored researcher who kept one thumb permanently on the fast-forward button. Stop hustling and you sank without a trace. But move a little too swiftly and you'd break the fragile surface tension of the black market. Either way, you were gone, with nothing left of you but some vague memory in the mind of a fixture like rats, though heart or lungs or kidneys might survive in the service of some stranger with new yen for the clinic tanks. As exemplified by this tiny sample, Gibson's prose is astonishing. It takes your mind to places it has never been, never conceived of, with an immediacy that feels like you're mainlining the book. What makes this even more jaw-dropping is that Gibson wrote the whole thing on a fucking typewriter. It is the first novel to ever win the Triple Crown of science fiction, the Hugo, the Nebula, and the Philip K. Dick Awards. It now seems strange that Gibson was so intimidated by Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, released while he was in the middle of creating the book, that he almost quit writing Neuromancer, fearing he'd been beaten to the punch. Neuromancer is cool, cryptic, and dangerous. It's a light-speed thrill ride through a decaying capitalist future, powered by data, drugs, razor girls, and post-human bioreality. It presented ideas decades ahead of their time, and is as fresh today as when it was first written. If you've never read it, jack in. That's it for this week. This is Quimby Delicious signing off. See you in the next video.